We're going to do a perspective drawing of the hallway in a more formal way. We've done a sketch before, and now we're going to go ahead and do the actual drawing on our drafting board. There are 7 steps that we're going to follow, same as within the sketch, and I made a small piece of paper that we can tape onto our drawing boards to remind us of our steps. The first thing we need to do is get the paper ready. And in order for this to work, we need to make sure that our paper is absolutely straight and not on an angle. If there's even a little bit of an angle, it's going to make your entire process very, very difficult. So let's use the board as a tool. What you're going to do is line up the paper with the edge of the board, and you want to overlap the clips a little bit. So I make sure that it's on the bottom, and then I hold the paper down and I lift the clips. 1 and 2. If I'm worried that maybe the paper will move a little bit, then I could go ahead and put a little bit of blue tape on 2 edges. That should be certainly enough to keep this secure. As we look at the image, we need to think about where are we in the hallway or in the photograph. So I'm going to be on the left-hand side a little bit, and I'm sitting in a chair, so my eye level is probably about the height of that window. So my vanishing point is going to be not in the middle, but a little bit to the left. That's going to make some changes to our drawing that we can incorporate and make it interesting. So first thing we need to do is I've given you a little cheat square because the end of the hallway is a square. And we know that it has 5 tiles going across. So I've already pre-marked this. I made it 10 centimeters long, so every 2 centimeters there's a mark. So this is going to just abbreviate our job a little bit. And we know we kind of want it, we don't want it down here because then there's not enough floor, and we don't want it up here, there's not enough ceiling. We kind of want it, you know, midway through the paper. This is when you're going to use your T-square and you're going to hook it onto the edge of your page. And this way, you're always going to have a straight line. So make sure that your T-square is touching all the way on that side, completely in there. And we look at the square and we say, that's about the right height. So we'll move the square out of the way and we're going to draw a little bit of a line. This is what's going to keep our square to the page. So our first step is to draw the end wall shape. So that's our square. So I'm going to put it on that line. And do I put it on the right? Do I put it on the left? Do I put it in the middle? Well, if you are standing a little bit to the left, then pushing it to the left will make the whole thing look like your point of view. If you were standing or sitting on the right, pushing it a little bit to the right may be helpful in your drawing process because it will look like what you are seeing. So I'm going to go ahead and move mine not from the center, but a little bit to the left-hand side. And then I'm going to line it up on the line that I created there, and I'm going to go ahead and trace it. And I'm going to make some marks where I've made the marks on the square. So those go on the top. So that's my square. So I have done the end wall shape. And again, this list should be on your board to help remind you. Next is going to be my end wall details. And when I look at my image, I have 2 doors there. They go straight up and down, and they're about, this tall. So we know we have to find the center of this space. We could use our ruler that's on the T-square. And if I put this at 50 and 60, we know halfway is going to be 55. You could also use a small ruler and use the centimeter side. And we can see that's the 0, that's 10, so 5 is the middle. The nice thing about using a T-square is it means you don't have to do 2 dots to find the center of something. So I find that mark, draw up the center, and that's the center of my doors. And I'm going to make a guess as to how wide they are. So I'm going to, actually I'll just use this mark and go down from there. And I'll use this mark and go down from there. That looks decent. That's close enough. And we look at the height of the doors. So I would say they're about 1/3 of the way up the wall. So I'd say this is about 1/3 of the way up. Make a mark. And again, I need to make sure that my T-square is all the way against the board. And I can draw that across. So now I have my 2 doors. I can erase out the extras. And the next thing I need to do is to draw the windows on the doors. So if I tie this into the edge, then my lines will be straight. Go down here, I'm going to make them about that big. And then I can go in the other direction. Again, make sure the T-square is right into the edge of the board. And now I have my 2 doors and windows. If things are a little off, that's okay. The main thing is that we've got our shapes down there. And if you want to add more details like the push handles, maybe the little fire alarm, you're welcome to do that. Adding more details will help differentiate your grade and get you higher points. So that's the end wall shape, and now we have the end wall details. Now we need to put in the vanishing point. So I already said that it's going to be not in the middle, but a little to the left and about the height of the window. This vanishing point, you want to put it in there and you want to press hard, because I need to see this vanishing point in order to assess your work and see that you have been using it correctly through the whole project. So we've got our vanishing point in. Now we need to do the walls of the space. So the wall goes from here to here, and the other one goes from here to here. So instead of using the T-square with the T down, I'm going to flip the T up, and now it becomes like a ruler. And I'm going to go ahead and line up my vanishing point. And here's a little tip that'll be helpful. Put your pencil on that vanishing point and then swing the ruler around it until it hits that corner. And then we draw the line out and let it go off the page. Turn it around here. My pencil on the vanishing point, swing it until it hits the corner, and then draw the line out. Now, if it runs out of room, go ahead and continue that line down. If you make little mistakes, go ahead and erase them. Do the next corner. Line up the corner. There's the vanishing point in the corner. Draw the line off. Vanishing point and the corner, and draw the line off. Now I have my walls of the space. The next thing is doors and doorways. So I have, actually this is a hallway here, and this is a double doorway. We have pillars in the middle, but I'm going to ignore them because they don't really help me see the space very much, and I'm not going to be graded on them. But let's look at this hallway entrance here. If we look at how tall that is, it's just a smidge away from the ceiling, and it's near the end of the hallway. So this is the end of the hallway, and I would say it's about that tall. So now I match the vanishing point to the top of that hallway area. So there's the top of the hallway area, and I draw a little bit of a line, just a sliver. And then I need to draw the left side and the right side of that. So here's the left side coming down, and I want it narrow, so maybe the right side's going to be there. Can erase out the extra. Now, because it's a hallway and goes around the corner, we need to draw a little line that goes over from the short side. So I'm going to put in my T-square, make sure it's all the way against the board. Draw a little line over. Do it down here as well, a little line over. And I'm going to erase this little line. So now it looks like you could actually go around the corner. We have a double door on this side, and I would say, well, that's very close to the ceiling, but that's much further down. I'd say about 1/3, maybe even a little taller than that. So I'm going to say they're about here, and about that tall. So I can line up my vanishing point to how tall the doors are. I'm going to draw a very light line. It's too much line, but that's okay. And we look at these doors and they're very skinny and close together. So I'm going to draw the right side of one door and then the left side of that door. And then there's a space in between. Draw the right side of the next door. And because this one's closer to us, I need to make it bigger. So that's a little bit bigger. And then I can erase out the extras. Erase out the space between. And then we have our door. If you want to play with the idea that you can see an edge here, you're welcome to do that, but you're not required to do that. That might look like this, where we have a little edge of the doorway coming over. Little edge of a doorway coming over. And then the same thing will happen on the top, going to the vanishing point. But again, this is not required, but if you feel so inclined, you're welcome to do this. And then we get a sense that the doorway goes in a little bit. And if you want to draw the actual door, vanishing point. There we go, we have two little doorways that go in. So doors are done and we've added extra detail. I don't see doorknobs, so I'm not going to draw them in. The next thing is the lockers, and we want the lockers to be over in this space. What you need to define is the beginning of the lockers and the end of the lockers. Now this goes off of the photograph, so I can just arbitrarily say where they begin and where they end. I'm going to ignore all of this extra stuff here because it's not necessary to my drawing. And as I look at this, I'd say these lockers are definitely shorter than a doorway, but a little taller than halfway. So I'm going to say they're about that tall if the locker is here. And from the vanishing point, I'm going to find that mark. Here's my height, and there's my vanishing point. So I'm going to draw a line, and that's going to represent the top of the lockers. Then I'm going to connect my T-square to the board and draw the beginning of the lockers, and I'm going to just make an arbitrary end to the lockers over here. Okay? Doesn't matter really how big they are, just you need a beginning and an end. Now, if this was a window, that would be one giant window, but we want to do it as lockers. So here's something to kind of think of. If you have lockers, they're kind of this square-based form. And we know we can find the center of a square by making an X through the square. And if we drew an X on these lockers, we would find this point right here as the center of these lockers. But it is in 3D, meaning that it's turning the corner. These lockers are on a wall like this. So these lockers will look bigger than these lockers will, and we need to draw it that way. But by remembering that we can draw an X to find the center of things that are square, we can use that to help us as we draw these lockers. So I can draw an X through the space of the lockers, so I go from one corner to the other. And I'm going to draw it light because at some point I have to erase it. So that's the center. So I'm going to draw a line up through the center. That's going to represent half of the lockers on the right and half of the lockers on the left. As I look at these lockers, I also notice there are upper lockers and lower lockers, and they're each about the same size. So I'm going to draw another line going through the center mark, but this one, because it's going away from us, because it recedes, it has to go to the vanishing point. So I'm going to line up the center with the vanishing point. Now this is a line that actually is going to stay, so I can go ahead and press a little harder on that. So now I have essentially 4 lockers. I'm going to go ahead and erase out my X's because they can be a little distracting for the next parts. So next what I need to do is divide these giant lockers in half, and I'm going to keep dividing them in half until I feel like it looks like lockers. This would also work for windows. This could be 4 windows. So because I have a line in the center, I don't actually have to draw an X through this. I could, but I don't have to. So what I'm going to do is go from corner to corner in one set of lockers and figure out where would it cross. So I go corner to corner, and yes, I could draw a line, but really all I care about is where does it cross over. I'll do that in the next set. Corner to corner in this one set of lockers, and this is where it would cross over. So that's my next 2 vertical lines. So I go ahead and I put a vertical line through this and through this. Now, as you draw your lines, if you find that your lines are not parallel, it may mean that your T-square is not all the way against your board. That's very important to do. And now I'm going to divide it one more time. And I go corner to corner in one set of lockers. I find out where is it going to cross. Corner to corner in the next one. Where is it going to cross? Corner to corner. There's the cross part. And corner to corner. And that's where it would cross. And then again, line up my T-square with the edge of the paper, and I can go ahead and draw my lines. And you'll see that the lockers will go from large to small. The largest ones will be closest to us, and the further ones will be narrower, and that way you'll know that it's in perspective. Another way to check that you've done it right is it will always be an even number. So we've got 8 going across, so it's probably correct. If you divide it one more time, then it would be 16 lockers. Now, that's acceptable for this project. If you want to draw locks on the lockers, little vents on the lockers, that would exceed expectations, but it's not what I'm expecting for this particular project. So now I've finished the lockers. The last one is the tiles. So I've already helped you out by marking out the 5 spaces. So we line up the vanishing point with each of those spaces that we marked, and we go off the edge of the paper. And these will make the rows of the tiles. You see, again, I always hold on the vanishing point and then pivot the ruler around it, and it does make it go easier. Now, to think about this, we need one set of squares to start, and we'll always do that on the edge. And you can arbitrarily pick how thick you want that to be. But try and think of it as if it was a square. And you could use the thickness of the ruler if you want to. Just go ahead and put it on the edge of the paper and then draw a line. Or you could just decide, okay, visually I like, however big that's going to be. So in order to finish this off, try and think of it like a game of checkers. When you play checkers, the checkers can move diagonally, and each time they move, it's an equal amount of space. So if we reverse this, we can see how that could look like ceiling tiles. So we have to find a full ceiling tile. If there's ceiling tiles going off a corner, you can't use it. But this is fully on the page. So I'm going to pretend that there's a checker in here. And then what I want to do is trace the path of that checker. So I go corner to corner, and I see where is it going to cross. So I can use my T-square, and I can line up corner to corner, and I could draw a line if I want to, or I could just mark where it is crossing over these lines. So that's the path of my checker, and where it crosses a line is where we're going to have another vertical line. So it's crossing here, so I line up my T-square, make sure it's hitting the edge, and I draw a line going all the way across. Go down here, that's where it crosses next. Crosses next here. And then it crosses on the edge here. And now these ceiling tiles appear to be going back in space correctly for perspective. If I want to continue, I'm going to use the same row. I'm going to have my other imaginary checker here. You do not have to draw these. I'm just doing this to help you out visually. And we go corner to corner in one full square. You can't do it out here. You have to do it in one square to reference the rest. And now I'm going to go corner to corner in that square where the checker is. And this time, instead of drawing a line that I have to erase, I'm just going to mark where does it cross the next lines. Turn my T-square over, go where it crosses, and I line it up. And this is how we can do tiles on the ceiling or the floor and make it look like it's 3D. When the lines are closer together than the pencil is thick, just stop. And actually, if you're standing in a hallway, at some point you won't be able to see the lines that go across. Like here you can see them, and here you don't really even see them anymore. So that would be enough. And that gets you your tiles. And the seventh thing is complete. This would be fully acceptable. If everything's in perspective, you would be earning your A. Later on, we're going to be adding surreal elements to this, but if you want to go for a higher A, then you would go in and add extra details where you feel you are comfortable to do that. If you have any questions, this is the time to either rewind the video or ask your teacher. If this has been helpful, go ahead and subscribe and see what other videos I have available for you.